Before we jump into the episode, I have to tell you about the newly renovated Sub-Zero Wolf and Cove showroom in Scottsdale. They've partnered with over 16 local designers and cabinet companies, of which I know most of them. I can say that this really helps give the immersive experience for anybody wanting to visualize their future kitchen. It's a place to start, experience, and bring your vision to life. Product experts assist you throughout the entire project, view an array of options, and see them in full-size kitchen vignettes. Turn knobs, open drawers, ignite flames, determine the best fit for you. Chef-led demonstrations provide the opportunity to ask questions of the experts that use them every day. Schedule your appointment at subzero-wolf.com/Scottsdale, or you can call 480-921-0900.
Part of our commitment to being a solutions provider means that we have to have solutions to problems. And we don't know what the problems are unless we're doing a really good job of listening to our audience and understanding what their pain points are. So that's a very concerted effort, and that's a critical part of the development effort as we think about how we want to engineer new solutions, is really listening to the struggles that homeowners are having, that builders have throughout the build process, and then doing our best to engineer solutions that can overcome those pain points.
So welcome to the AT Construction Podcast. We have Casey Smyth with us. Casey is the brand manager for LP Structural Solutions. So welcome, Casey.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. And you know, I've had Neil on, your counterpart, and he's been on the episode a couple times. He's been out there with me in the field on some of our projects, and I always learn something when I have him on, same as you. And there's a reason that you're behind the brand, right? These brands that we work with and collaborate with, and some of the amazing product you're putting out there. And I can only imagine the complexity in the R&D department, right? As you're thinking about how can we create products that are sustainable, that perform, they're resilient, so maybe define, when you think about product development resiliency, what does that even mean?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question. So, to us, really resiliency comes down to building products that result in structures that can withstand increasingly adverse environments. So that's really important right now. Unfortunately, we're seeing an alarming increase in climate-related disasters. The NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, actually tracks this data. Since 1980 to 2021, there have been 308 different $1 billion plus climate disaster events. And actually last year was one of the deadliest years on record. So we're seeing, unfortunately, that trend move upward as time goes on. So for us, product development resiliency is really about developing solutions that can withstand these increasingly adverse threats. And not just from a climate catastrophe standpoint, but even day-to-day climate challenges. Developing products that can withstand the challenges that come from being in the areas of beating heat. So our TechShield radiant barrier sheathing can keep the attic up to 30 degrees cooler. Our NovaCore thermal insulated sheathing, that's a continuous insulation, which can provide greater indoor comfort. So it's really all of these things. It's about combating these increasingly scary climate threats, but also the day-to-day comfort for homeowners as well, and figuring out how we make solutions to address our customers' unique pain points.
I love that you took that aspect too, because there's one thing with the climate, catastrophic events that happen. I mean, we all know recently what happened for those that have been at Fort Myers in Southern Florida, and Tampa, and, down to like Marco Island and stuff, and just in Naples, like some of the, it's just catastrophic to the amount of damage, and as you mentioned, insurance and all the complications that go with that. But in addition to that, we just have real living examples. Like I live in Phoenix, and so building in Phoenix, like right now, it's amazing. We're late October. It's a beautiful time of year. We always, this is when it gets crowded here. All our snowbirds, all our, second time or second home clients are in town because we have great weather through, essentially March, April, May, right? Depending on the year. But
sure,
the reality is, man, dead summer here in Phoenix, and we're talking July and August, and that sun is just beating down. And how destructive that sun, the heat, where it can be upwards of 115 degrees. it's just hot. Like it's really hot in Phoenix. And so we have to be careful as builders as we think about the building materials we're putting in. Will this fail over time? You know, I think of some of the architectural designs that may have like a lot of raw wood on the outside and how that can be
Hmm.
exposed to the elements. And then you think about wear and tear and maintenance for clients. And so I would imagine
Sure.
that's really difficult for someone such as yourself, Casey, as you're working through design and think about, we're trying to design products that can sustain in Boston or Portland or Austin or Wisconsin and Phoenix. I mean, you're talking about totally different climate zones.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's part of what we're really proud of with our portfolio of resilient solutions. Our structural solutions products really they can be catered to the unique challenges that you face in your geography. And I think Arizona is a great example. I mean, that beating heat, that's a great environment to introduce a product like Tech Shield, our radiant barrier sheathing that can keep the attic up to 30 degrees cooler. It blocks up to 97% of the radiant heat from ever admitting into your home. But if you go up to the Pacific Northwest, their everyday threats are probably more in the form of moisture. So heavy rainfall, that's just a constant part of life. And having solutions, not just while you're constructing the home as a builder, and while the home is a little more exposed to the elements, but after that home goes up, having solutions that can withstand those unique adverse conditions. And so we're really proud to say that, no matter what the challenge from radiant heat to wildfires to moisture issues to structural and strength products, we have solutions within our portfolio that can help face those challenges. And again, as you said, where we get the most interest from homeowners tends to be the day-to-day factors. So being able to be in their house in Arizona in the summertime and not have to have their air conditioning working as hard because their tech shield is keeping 97% of that radiant heat from ever entering in the house in the first place. So it's the everyday threats, and then of course the disastrous ones as well. But we are proud to say that we have a very diverse portfolio of solutions that can combat many of these challenges.
So when you're thinking about, just the importance of continuing education for a builder, because the Tech Shield's a great product. Now with that, it's really important, for the installer. It's one thing to know about a lot of the products that are out in the market from any vendor, but how does that, the importance of understanding how it's installed, right? How, the proper method and techniques. So then that way, not just warranty, but that it's protected for the client. As you're thinking about that, especially as people are doing a lot of spray foam insulation, right? And,
Mhm.
how important is it to understand the application and how are you educating the public, such as myself, to say, okay, this is a great product. It's a great solution. However, keep in mind X, Y, and Z during install or when it's mixed with other products in the market.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I mean that is getting the installation correct is really critical. You get one chance to do it. Um, After that's done, it becomes much more of an issue to go back and correct any incorrect installation after the fact. So it is critical to pay attention to those details. Um, the beauty of many of our products is that despite the fact, and TechShield included, despite the fact that they have enhanced performance features, by and large, most of our products install the same way as regular sheathing, as regular subflooring. So, I would say if you are savvy with pretty standard installation practices, it should be real easy for you to figure out the installation nuances for our structural solutions portfolio of solutions. But we do have a variety of resources available. Um, one of the things that we learned from COVID is that as QR codes exploded in popularity, that was a big opportunity for us to put QR codes on a variety of our materials. So we have that. We're actually working on getting those incorporated into our product covering and our packaging. So installers will be able to just pull that up on the spot and kind of get installation guidance, installation tips and videos and so forth. But in the interim, before that becomes available, we do have installation resources on our YouTube channels, on our social media channels, and of course on our website at lpcorp.com. We have a literature section which has all sorts of great guidance for installation tips and installation best practices as well.
I love that you're doing the QR codes. It's funny because quite a few episodes ago, I had Evan Crow on, and he built in the South, and he took the QR codes where he now, from an interior design perspective and building perspective, he has QR codes throughout the house. So, a lot of us use Buildertrend or other project management software where we have, our cloud of selections and cabinet drawings and specifications. And even though everyone has a smartphone, there's something to be said where you can just pull up your camera, pull the QR code. Instantly, you have like the elevation, the design specs.
Yeah.
And to your point, from a product manufacturer, it's something why I wonder why more products don't do this, because having the QR code now, if I'm going to install it, think of it for many of us that have maybe tried to do anything at home, right? Maybe replacing a water heater or changing a garbage disposal. I mean, you're going on YouTube, and fortunately, we have access to that now to look at and say, okay, well, how do I do this? But essentially, by having this through LP, now it's a quick access to the installer who's doing this in the field to have access to all the content to make sure it's done properly.
Absolutely, yeah, and I do think, I mean, it's our job to make things as easy as possible. Especially when we're asking customers to switch to a new solution that maybe they haven't used before. Um, that's our responsibility, is to make that process as seamless as we can make it. So, to that point, we think of ourselves. We had a transformation over the last 5 years. We've forever considered ourselves a building product company. And over the last 5 years, we've taken this transformation to move more towards being a building solutions company. In this particular example, though very small, this is just kind of one example to kind of highlight that. It's not all about just the physical products that we offer. It's about the services that we offer around them, the solutions that we provide around them as well. And so this is just, again, I mean, it's a small example, but this is one area where, as we look towards what does it mean to be a solution provider, creating resources like this for our customers out in the field to make using our products easier, to make getting information about our products easier. That's all part of that.
I love the shared solution. I think that's very creative from a marketing side. It says this structural solutions, right? So it's not just here's a component, here's a product we're selling. It's actually solving something we're looking for as builders. And what I found, in fact, today before you and I are recording, I was meeting with a client, and clients are a lot more savvy. A client comes in, they're like, "Hey, Brad, I've seen some of the product you're putting out there. We're doing Mark La Liberte's house, which is net zero.
Mm-hmm.
The Desert Comfort Experience, which is, Pro Builders House of the Year. And I know, as you're familiar with that project, Casey, we have a lot of LP product in that home. But the clients are seeing this, and they're coming in saying, Brad, we want to do a house that's more sustainable. We want something that's better built. We want, ICF blocks and SIPS trusses, and then, of course, the LP exterior. And they're seeing the market go this way. They're seeing maybe the increased population of Phoenix, and they're saying, like, the grid, maintenance, we want to, have a home that's more sustainable. And what I love is, LP's made this shift from, not just building building products, but building solutions. And, speak
Absolutely.
about that transformation, like when a company is like at the forefront of saying, okay, instead of just being a building product manufacturer, not just solving things, but let's look at like kind of moving the industry a certain direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple points there. I think you hit on something that's really interesting. I think we're at a really cool time in which, homeowners now are more educated about the potential risks that their home faces than ever. They have access to more information than ever before. And we're getting more and more questions from homeowner audiences about how our products work, what the benefits are, and so forth. They have so much more information at their fingertips, so they're much more savvy about the materials that they want put in their home. And I think kind of simultaneously fueling that is the fact that we are seeing this alarming increase in climate disasters in recent years. So it's fascinating to see. It's exciting for us to see within the industry as well that there is kind of this growing interest at the homeowner level. Usually from my business, the structural solutions business, we typically tend to kind of cater our messaging more towards the builder dealer audience. But we're seeing more and more of an opportunity to speak directly to homeowners as they are becoming more and more discerning. So that's the first point there. And then you would
Yeah, and
ask
I think
about,
maybe to before you get to the second part, Casey, what's interesting about that too is the same client, to your point, and this is really what's helped you as a manufacturer be just at the forefront here, is that these clients are telling me how 25 years ago they did an ICF house, and I'm just like, I'm looking at them like, how did you even do that? This is pre YouTube, pre all the, like you said, clients are super savvy. There's so much information out there. They're seeing it, they're consuming it, they're going to the build shows, it's inundated with innovation,
yeah,
and they're aware, and it's so much more accessible, and so many builders have not really made this push, and not even builders. I know a lot of designers and architects that have really not thought a lot about this, even some very well-known teams that like aren't, it's easy to be very, we're busy, it's easy to be caught up in our like day-to-day methods. But it's really important that we're starting to look at, okay, well, where's the future going? Where's the future of building going? Where's the client consumer direction going?
yeah,
And then codes are changing and government, direction. And so we have to be aware of just all the different tools that are out there to make sure that we're implementing those.
absolutely. Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of different forces at play here. But I think the end result is you have a savvier homeowner who is looking for more. Um, And, there's a variety of different theories as to why that would be the case. But I think, part of it is the green movement and sustainability. And more homeowners are having an understanding of what options are available for sustainable build. Um, and I think there's a growing sense of pride around homeowners who choose to build sustainable homes with sustainable products. So I think that's a big part of it, but there's definitely a lot of factors at play, but it has kind of brought about this very exciting opportunity, I think, for manufacturers like LP, but also builders as well, to have more informed conversations with homeowners, to convince homeowners of the value of switching to more premium products, products that are enhanced against the various threats that they might face, products that are enhanced from a sustainability standpoint, have better performance from a sustainability standpoint, and so forth.
So what's interesting about that, and you mentioned this too earlier in the conversations, you said that, a lot of clients, not just aware because of like social media and, just other information technology that's at their fingertips, but they're also thinking about their health, their longevity. And we saw this in COVID, right? So many clients are thinking
Absolutely.
about air quality, water quality, the enclosure, if we're locked down at home. I mean, just looking at everything, you're evaluating your entire, like, unlike ever before seen, if you look at the positive of COVID, well, it's allowed us to really look at where we're at in life and our priorities and how can we better prepare ourselves if in case something happens again right in the future. So how are you, listening to your audience, which is builders, you have, the normal public and the consumer, as you're thinking about, these innovative solutions and building science and the evolution of structural components, not just doing a widget, which some people are, but also how
Sure.
you're problem solving, by listening to the feedback.
Sure. I think just diving into a very specific point you made there, and then I'll kind of back it up a little bit. But you talked about health, and I think I mean that's a critical component of it. I think you're right. COVID highlighted that a little bit. It created more attention around what it means to live a healthy life, and I think being able to offer solutions that can create a healthier life, whether that's our WeatherLogic air and water barrier, for example. If you compare that to other WRB systems, all of the seams are taped up for a WeatherLogic WRB system. So there are fewer areas where air can kind of leak in and out of the structure, which means that if you're in an area that has more allergens or more air pollutants, potentially because of the fact that those seams are taped up, potentially that can create a situation where homeowners may have a better experience breathing healthier air, less contaminated air, and just living a healthier life being inside their house. Another important point as far as health goes is, again, if we can provide fortified solutions that do a better job of standing up to various climate threats, uh, heaven forbid a tornado or a hurricane, or intense winds come through any given homeowner's area, but if they do, the idea that we may be able to better protect those homeowners with more fortified solutions, that speaks to health as well. Um, so that's speaking specifically to the health component of it. I think your question was more around just kind of generally speaking, how do we sort of monitor these trends that we're hearing about, and how do we translate those into solutions? And the answer is it's really simple. Part of our commitment to being a solutions provider means that we have to have solutions to problems. And we don't know what the problems are unless we're doing a really good job of listening to our audience and understanding what their pain points are. So that's a very concerted effort, and that's a critical part of the development effort as we think about how we want to engineer new solutions, is really listening to the struggles that homeowners are having, that builders have throughout the build process, and then doing our best to engineer solutions that can overcome those pain points. You mentioned building science as well. Building science is a critical part of the process. I view building science more as kind of the ingredients as to how we get to the end result. The end result being more resilient structures, more sustainable structures, and structures that are better built.
It's interesting, to hear that definition of building science, but we've heard that term, at least I have a lot more in the industry. It's something I never heard, 15 years ago, but now there's been this big push. And there's a fine line, right? Going back to the install and the QR codes, to understand the install, but also, how some of these products can save time, they can save budgets because you're having less overlap, less products, less buildup if you can, like the waterproof barrier, right? That's included with like WeatherLogic. But there's still a fine balance from your side to have a product that is at the same time more of a, call it a premium product that solves an issue. It's dealing with these complicated climate zones, but it's also affordable. I mean, there's a fine line between, hey, we have this great product, but no one's going to buy it because it's too expensive, to being able to produce something that, hey, this is going to speak to the masses.
Absolutely. It is a fine line. And I think, you know, no doubt, premium products tend to cost more than standard grade, than commodity grade products when you look at just a raw material comparison. But I would argue that that's only really part of the story. The raw materials is just a component of the overall equation. And the other pieces to factor into it are, from a builder standpoint, can it make the job site more efficient? Can it speed up installation time? Can it cut out labor and costs that's associated with labor? Um, if you look at our flame block assembly, if you were to compare buying flame block to buying a standard sheet of OSB, sure, there's more cost there. But when you look at the whole assembly, with a lot of flame block assemblies, you're actually able to cut out other raw materials that would be required as part of that assembly that you don't have to use if you use flame block. So in some cases, you're able to cut out labor. In some cases, you're able to cut out actual raw materials. And then lastly, for the homeowner, there's an energy component as well. So, I'll use TechShield, NovaCore, and WeatherLogic as examples here. But with these specific products, all of them have some ability, uh, we believe, to defend against energy inefficiency. So the WeatherLogic example I used before, with the tapes, with the seams being taped up, that makes it much harder for conditioned air inside the house to leak out to the outside of the house, and not non-conditioned air from the outside to leak in. So that creates more energy efficiency. And that can potentially lower energy bills. Same with NovaCore. NovaCore can reduce thermal bridging, which can make the heating and cooling of your house more efficient. TechShield, same thing, reducing 97% of the radiant heat from ever entering into your attic in the first place, keeping your attic up to 30 degrees cooler potentially. That also has very strong potential to cut down on energy costs. So when you look at all of these things holistically, yes, comparing premium products to standard products at a raw cost by cost material comparison basis, it can cost more. But looking at the whole picture, a lot of times, we think there's potential for the cost increases to not be that substantial. And actually, in some cases, we think there's potential for it to actually be cheaper over the long run when you factor in labor, um, whole component or whole assembly materials, and energy savings.
Well, it's interesting along that topic when you're talking about just the energy advantages. Last week on the podcast, I had Al Trellis, and a big thing. He's a construction consultant. He's been in the industry 51 years, and just a tremendous wealth of knowledge. And a lot of it's leadership and company culture. But a point that he continued to make was he spoke about biases, not having understanding your biases in the market and being able to look outside of that or get good feedback. And a lot of us builders may say, hey, at the end of the day, Casey, my clients, like, they don't care about the envelope. They care about like a pretty range or nice cabinetry. And there's no doubt that there may be, with social media and some of the other visual things that people are seeing, that I would imagine there's still some clientele that may be not fully understanding the demand or the necessity to have strong building envelopes and
Definitely.
building science and energy efficiency. But at the same time, you know, it's changing, right? You're seeing that. I'm seeing that. That the more information we could put out there about these products, about how important it is to think about like the wear and tear on the grid, for example, Phoenix and where the population has greatly increased, and building homes that are more sustainable, you're going to start attracting those clients where you're getting away from your bias, which you think that the public may want. They maybe want something else, and it's really important to be educated and work with vendors such as LP to understand, hey, here's some products that can actually help increase sales, and maybe even sales isn't your goal, but maybe you're attracting the right customer.
Absolutely.
That you're hoping, the ideal client.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you're right. I think it can be a more challenging sell than convincing a homeowner to upgrade something that they'll see every day. You think about the structural components of the build, they get covered up and they don't ever see them again. So it's easy to kind of think, well, I don't need to go premium on that aspect. It'll be covered by the time I move in. But I think just because it's covered up, it's still an incredibly critical component. And you're right, we are seeing more of an understanding of this. I think the trend is moving in the right direction. But historically, I think it has its challenges to convince homeowners that that is the area where a little extra spend should be taken. But it's critical. Sometimes I make the analogy of like a Ferrari or a luxury sports car. They go down the road, everyone sees them, they look amazing, they look really cool, they're aesthetically beautiful. But before that car can ever get on the road, there's a ton of internal working to make a really well-built engine, a really high-performing engine that can power that car and that can move it around. In a kind of similar way, I think about the structural components of a home like that. Yeah, you can drive up to the outside of a really beautiful house and admire how nice and beautiful it looks. But it's important that the inner workings of it, the bones of it, are strong, are steady, that they're stable, that they can withstand a variety of challenges that come their way, and so forth. So um, it's as you kind of alluded to. I think there's become more and more of an understanding, and I'm excited to see more and more of that understanding. But it is an absolutely critical component, and I think it's an important message for builders to be pushing with their customers.
So it's one thing with, and we touched on this a little bit with builders to push it and maybe some consumers. How often are you involved, in the design community between architects, interior designers? There are definitely some nationally that are at the forefront and really into this movement. The education from the entire construction team per se, not just builder client, but also the other entities that are involved.
Sure. Yeah, I think the architectural community is it's an important audience for us, and we target the architectural community very intentionally with a lot of our messaging. I think there's some products that have a particularly strong play within the architectural community. Flame block, we find, often gets specified by architects. Our weather logic, air and water barrier, we find is increasingly getting specified by architects. So we think there is a strong play for our products in the architectural community. They are very, um, uh, uh, I would say, a very intentional target. Um, and I look forward to kind of seeing how, we grow with that specific audience in the years to come.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows. When it comes to building homes at AFT, almost every project has Pella Windows. And they've been just an incredible partner of ours. And locally, Sammy and Adam, they are not only amazing business partners behind us, but they are super close friends. And I speak on the podcast all the time about the importance of relationships, right? Relationships with our customers, with our vendors, with our suppliers. Because at the end of the day, I'm only as good as those that help our brand and assist us in our projects to take it from the ground up all the way to completion. And if we didn't have partners such as Pella, there's no way we'd be who we are today. Over the years, we've built this amazing relationship. When we call them or email them, they respond. They're quick. Their company culture, their integrity, their honesty, they are always there to do what's right for us and the customer. They can do anything from small replacement projects to large custom homes and even multi-million-dollar commercial projects. And also, when you think about their product line, they can do ultra contemporary, historical preservation, and large traditional projects. So for anyone, any scale, any size, they're the ones to call. They're here local. They have an amazing Instagram. Make sure and give them a follow to see what they're doing. So if you need windows and doors, give Sammy and Adam a call. We stand behind Pella. We love what they do, their culture, their brand, and especially their quality. And if you want to learn more about Pella Windows, check our show notes. We'll have everything tagged there so you can give them a follow and have their contact information to reach out. For those of you that have listened to the podcast, you know how big of a fan we are of Buildertrend and that we have used this software for the last 4 years. And many of the guests that we brought on the podcast are also Buildertrend users. And in this day and age, with as busy as all of us are in construction, as complicated as it is with escalation pricing, lead times, tracking, organization, all of us need a good project management software to help simplify and organize our business. And there are a couple features that we love a ton about Buildertrend. And one is the owner portal. The other is the daily logs. And these are features that we use daily, right? Half of my clients are out of state. And as an owner, it is so imperative how we communicate with our clients, with our team, with our customers. And through Buildertrend, this allows us that quick connection. They can check at any time. We can communicate with them. We're up to date. This has actually helped us win jobs, win projects because of that organization, especially at pre-construction. And Buildertrend also offers a ton of service on the back end, training and understanding and workshops, to help us use our software effectively. They also have the podcast, The Building Code. To learn more, head to buildertrend.com/AFT to get a 60-day money-back guarantee on your Buildertrend account. That's 60 days to make sure you love this product with no pressure, and I know you will. Now, along those lines, not just the design community and implementation and specifications, that helps us as builders to, implement and install. But, I think of my job as a builder, it's just mitigating risk. I'm thinking of risk all the day from, not just job site safety and OSHA, but, safe and health of my team and mental fortitude. And then, the clients. And again, all these things that can come back, right? The more you build, the longer your tail gets, the more exposure. And I don't have to deal with this as much, although I do when you think about rain. I'm not building in Oregon where it can rain a tremendous amount, or Austin, there's humidity. Like Legacy, when I think about putting just a standard OSB in, on a subfloor, as opposed to maybe like a Legacy product that's like a premium subfloor that's going to allow, some exposure to moisture. And, when you think about floor squeaking, I don't want to be called back for that. I mean, there's just so many aspects.
Absolutely.
I'm looking to that there's an investment there, yes, in some of these products as opposed to maybe an off-the-shelf OSB. But the upside is just so much more great, especially in mitigating and controlling that risk that we have as builders.
I agree wholeheartedly. And that's something we hear very regularly from our builder audience is that risk and mitigating risk is a huge component to the job. It's something that keeps them up at night. And, making a little bit more of an investment upfront can really pay off in the long run. And you think about things like an exposed subflooring during the build process. Well, that added peace of mind knowing that if it's going to rain and that subfloor might be exposed and that Legacy has a covered until it's covered warranty, I think that that goes a long ways. And if risk mitigation is what builders are after, I think there's a lot to be said about taking the investment up front for more premium products. They're going to work harder for you over the long run, um, that are going to help fortify that structure better. As you alluded to, with callbacks, not just being on the job site and the build process, but with callbacks as well after homeowners are actually in the house.
Yeah, there's no question. Not only we're looking to build something more sustainable, but no one wants callbacks, right? No one wants to deal with a bunch of warranty issues or just things that can be, fail over time that at the end of the day, we're on the hook for the health and safety of our clients. Walk through like NovaCore for those aren't familiar, uh, that have used a NovaCore product as comparable, Tech Shield, something, in the Net Zero house, we have Tech Shield, we have Flame Block, we have WeatherLogic and Legacy. I mean, all those
Mhm.
products. Walk through NovaCore and kind of the application or difference.
Yeah, so NovaCore is the newest product in the structural solutions portfolio. We're really psyched to announce that we are officially live with it. We're selling it. We debuted it this year at the IBS show, the International Builder Show in Orlando, um, and just tremendous traction. Lots of interest from our audience at the IBS show. Um, I'm very excited to subsequently launch that a couple months later, just this September. So we're hearing really favorable uh, feedback from our customers who have used NovaCore so far. But it's a really cool product. You think about essentially what it is, it combines regular OSB with an inch of XPS foam. Um, and it combines them together to create a sheet of or continuous insulation sheathing. Um, and that has really cool implications for, the concept of thermal bridging. Um, Having a continuous insulation where the studs might normally meet the wall sheathing, having that being broken by continuous insulation, um, has some really strong implications for energy efficiency, and interior climate comfort and so forth. So um, it's a really great product from a homeowner perspective, can go a long ways. Our building science manager, Neil Friedberg, Brad, who you've had the chance to talk to a couple of times, he always makes the reference to, if you've ever been in a house and there are different rooms in the different house that might be different temperatures. Everyone's got the cold room in their house, at least up north where I'm from in Wisconsin, where you walk into one particular room and it's a little bit colder than the other rooms, and you have to put a
Well, if I
sweater on or
interrupt
something.
you, we can understand because in Arizona, we have the hot room. So it's the reverse. They'll be in the middle
Yeah,
of summer. You go upstairs, maybe a certain room over the garage where it's not insulated one. You're like, wow, I can't get this cool at all.
exactly, exactly. So, but yeah, the idea there is it can help disrupt some of that thermal bridging. It can help provide continuous insulation without going too into the nitty-gritty details here. It can also make it easier for builders in some cases to use 2x4 framing as opposed to 2x6 framing in some climate zones that mandate 2x6 with certain R values. We can, because of the built-in R value with NovaCore, um, we're able to make it easier essentially to be able to use 2x4 studs.
So going back to NovaCore, I mean, where are you seeing this applied mostly? I mean, for anyone listening, when you talk about the thermal breaks and thermal bridging, I mean, it's very common. Some people have heard the term SIPs, like structured insulated panels, right? Where, the truss system is thinking about like ice cream sandwich. And essentially you're doing the same thing where you have the OSB, the XPF foam.
Mhm.
Where are you seeing this specified and how, percentage, maybe a guess, commercial, residential, where are you seeing this product being driven?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's so new, so well, time will tell. Um, I think probably of the builds that I'm aware of, most of them tend to be residential. But that's not to say it doesn't have a very strong play in a commercial application. I think it absolutely could. But that's just, again, only being live for a little over a month now. Those are the applications that I'm aware of at this point.
And then you speak to your background. I mean, when you talk about, your role in LP, day to day, how did you get into building science, the passion behind to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I've been with LP for 7 years now, held a variety of different roles. I started with the company in a growth and innovation team. And the growth and innovation team that I joined was essentially responsible for new product development. So, new product development and also figuring out new avenues for growth with existing products. So, really enjoyed that experience a lot. But around the time that we were preparing to launch our WeatherLogic product, we were in need of a product manager to kind of step up and take the reins on the WeatherLogic product. So I became the product manager for our WeatherLogic product, which is a function within our marketing department. Through that work, got exposed to the work that our brand management team was doing. And our brand management team covers off on the whole structural solutions portfolio, which is Flame Block, Tech Shield, WeatherLogic, NovaCore, Legacy, and Top Notch 350. So I had an opportunity after working in the WeatherLogic role for a little over 2 years to join the brand marketing team in the role of brand manager for structural solutions. So um, didn't have any experience in the building industry prior to coming to work for LP, but it's been a ton of fun. My background was hospitality. I worked with Marriott hotels prior to going to grad school, and then working for LP straight out of grad school. But I really enjoy it. There's tons of great people, both within the company, within the industry. Um, and my passion, what gets me excited about what we're doing, um, is the impact that we can make on society. And I mean, I think about there's a very noble purpose behind what we're trying to do. My role as a brand manager is essentially to try to get the word out about how, with our structural solutions portfolio, it's a good idea to upgrade to more resilient solutions. And if I'm effective with that messaging, and if we're collectively effective with that messaging across LP, and we're doing our jobs right, that means that homeowners, families, individuals, could potentially be living safer and better protected lives because of the work that we're doing. So it's a really cool thing. I'm business background, so of course I get excited to get up every day, be in a business environment, and get to work in marketing and try to move the needle on helping proliferate our products. But beyond that, it's cool to have that emotional connection to that greater purpose, and that's all part of it. It feeds into LP's purpose, which is to build a better world. Building a better world is the corporate purpose that we have established for ourselves, and having a role where I so concretely see where what I do on a day-to-day basis ties into that, and helps contribute to building a better world. It's a really cool thing, and I'm just having a ton of fun doing it.
I love it. Well, I love that you started your career working for a really small company in Marriott.
Yeah, exactly.
At least it, sets the tone as, coming into LP. And then, it's interesting to hear the business background, how, especially I would imagine at that time coming out of, being business degree and, of course at Marriott and hospitality, then coming on LP, all of us have to start somewhere. Right. And what I mean by that is that I grew up in the industry. I did construction management in college. I came, and was fortunate to work on some unique projects, but I never, at the time, didn't know much about net zero or passive house or
Sure,
sustainability or any of
sure.
this stuff. And so you become more passionate, you start to understand it, and then ideally, network with like-minded individuals and like-minded clients. I mean, and so that may go to your passion. I mean, as even with the business background, as you've been involved in product development and seeing installation and seeing things change in the market move, I'd imagine that is part of the driver of what inspires you today.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love a good challenge and figuring things out from scratch. And as you said, establishing the relationships. I think we're really lucky to work in an industry with lots of really great people, who I find overwhelmingly to be very welcoming, warm people. So it made it an easy transition for me. And I remember starting on the growth and innovation team at LP, um, not knowing much of anything about the industry, and everything was just brand new concept. But you're right, over time you kind of figure it out, and you lean on the help of the connections that you make in the industry. And um, it's easy to see why people uh, get get sucked into this industry and stay here for years. It's a very gratifying place to be. Lots of great people, and lots of interesting work to do.
So you mentioned early on the challenges. What keeps you up at night? I mean, you think about it, it's a great industry and it's fun to see, it continue to change and be challenged. What are those challenges you're dealing with or things that, keep you up besides me calling you saying, Casey, we got this issue? No, I'm just kidding. I haven't called you. So
I think in the past my answer probably would have been more the housing market. Being in this industry, we are subject to some of the housing market volatility. I, I'm very happy to say that today that's no longer my answer. When I would have started at the company, that was absolutely the case. Um, we were a building products company. We made a lot of commodity materials that just kind of moved with the market. But ever since we decided that we were going to set a stake around being a solutions company, we've really transformed our offering, and we've really kind of been able to insulate ourselves from the ups and downs of the housing market a little bit more effectively by having more premium products, and by sort of being able to chart more of our own destiny with those offerings, as opposed to just offering commodity products and kind of being at the mercy of the ups and downs of the housing market. So that's that's extremely exciting to be living this now. I mean, it was an incredibly audacious dream at the time when it was established, but we stayed committed to it as a corporation, um, and I think it's really paid off. We are a technology solutions company, um, and I think more and more the market is starting to understand that and helping us drive that transformation. Um, so it's that's been really cool to see. Nowadays, it's more, I would say, the climate aspect. Not it's a fine line when I share messaging around what's going on, because the last thing you want to do is sound alarmist and catastrophic. Uh, but it is urgent and it is serious. And I think it does require um, intervention from on builders' behalf, on homeowners' behalf, to choose better solutions that are better able to stand up to those threats. So that's what I think about. And as you pointed out with Southern Florida earlier in our conversation, that's just one of many examples that will pop up throughout the year of where these horribly catastrophic events happen. Um, and I think about, if you look at the trajectory and how it seems to be kind of picking up steam, and we're seeing more and more of these events. What keeps me up at night is figuring out how we can kind of um, more rapidly and more widespread help proliferate our solutions, which can better protect people from these threats.
yeah, I love that breakdown. I think, as you mentioned, as you're continuing to um, work through better ways to set you apart, right? And so what you mentioned is coming into construction, especially business, you're probably thinking there's ebbs and flows in the market. But as you have a premium brand or product, and I think there's a lot of application there for someone such as myself as a builder or a designer, an architect, that as you're thinking of, hey, there could be a recession, there could be a slow time in the market, but if you're setting yourself apart, whether it's through different aspects of the process or communication or brand, it's that job security, and you'll find that, especially if you're passionate about it, you believe in it, and you're doing something that'll set you apart.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what it all comes down to me is just maintaining that passion. You know, it's really noble work, and as long as that's the case, I think personally I'll always maintain a high level of excitement about what we're doing and the potential impact that we stand to make on the world and um, in our overall goal of helping to build a better world. Um, so I feel very fortunate, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of a company that believes in that, believes in building a better world, um, and that's helping to push that mission forward.
I love that, Casey. So outside of like the main goals, especially what we spoke about today, and your passion in the industry, what do you do for fun?
Oh man, I'm incredibly fortunate to now call Nashville home. And
Nashville's a great place.
it's a wonderful city. I've been very lucky to kind of move all over the U.S. and a little bit all over the world actually prior to settling down here. So um, gotten to see a lot of places, and I think it's my favorite place I've lived in so far. But I feel very fortunate. There's tons of outstanding live music, and I'm a huge live music connoisseur. So I never get tired of walking down to music establishments on a Tuesday night or a Saturday night or in the middle of the day on a Sunday, and listening to live music. We're very lucky to have such a high concentration of musical talent in such a small place. Um, so that's always really fun. I'm a big outdoor enthusiast. I have a personal trip coming up to Patagonia in a couple of weeks here, which
That'd
counting
be
down the
amazing.
days of I've been excited about it for over a year now. Um, so getting outdoor and doing as much outdoor activity as I can, hiking, biking, kayaking, a little bit of rock climbing here and there, and just as I said, psyched to be able to take a whole week and go down to one of the most beautiful places in the world and do that coming up here in 2 weeks.
Well, that's super exciting. I'm a little envious. I'm not going to lie. That's going to be an amazing trip to Patagonia. So
Yeah,
congrats
I'm
on that.
excited for it. Have you been?
I never have. I've been down that way to like Mendoza and stuff, but I've never been as far south as Patagonia. So you're going
Okay,
to love it.
okay, yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Well, I
Well,
will.
what's that?
I will report back, and I'll
Yeah,
make sure to get lots of pictures.
you need to report back. So for those listening, where can they find you?
uh, just in terms of social presence,
Yeah,
or
social presidents. I mean, we spoke about LP. We'll have the links there, but I mean, if any of
sure,
them want to
sure.
connect, whether it be LinkedIn or
Sure, absolutely. Yes, please find me on LinkedIn, Casey Smyth. Smith is with a Y, Structural Solutions Brand Manager, LP Building Solutions. Would love to connect over LinkedIn. You can follow all of our activity on LP Pros on Instagram. We also have our LP Facebook channels. Um, and please, if you're in the industry and you're coming to IBS, I will be at the booth this year. So please drop by and say hello if you're listening to this today and any of this resonates and you'd like to talk about it more. Would love to have a conversation.
well, Casey, you've been awesome. I appreciate you sharing your expertise and some of the products available for us. And have fun in Patagonia. And if not before, we'll see you in Vegas.
Sounds great. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate the opportunity to come chat with you today.
So thank you all for tuning into the podcast today. And just as a recap, if you check the show notes, they're just going to have all the links for the topics that we discuss. And also one of our favorite features now is the chapters that go through the conversation. So if there's certain topics you want to revisit or listen to, they're outlined by the time that we discuss those. And again, we can't thank you enough for all of your support. Please make sure and download our podcast, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you download your podcast.